we've done this program for a number of years now, and with a generous grant from the MacArthur Foundation, we've been able to increase our gift. And we have at the Truth Telling Project a long-standing tradition of supporting organizers, activists in their communities. We first started as a support and activists for the month in our newsletter, and it's expanded to a monthly, just a monthly support where we present, a radical truth teller presents to our community, and we make this recording available, and we're able to give a gift and invite our community to continue to support this radical truth teller for the month. So we always begin with land acknowledgements and acknowledging our pronouns. And one of the reasons why we do acknowledge the land upon which we stand is to give attention to the ongoing injustices that have been committed against Indigenous First Nations people of the North and the South Americas, from where my family hails. And we pledge to interrupt this legacy by acknowledging the land. We also educate ourselves about Indigenous history and recognize and support and advocate for our native cousins. We also acknowledge those taken from their original home on the African continent and pay attention to the relationship there between taking land and taking people. So let's just, you're more than welcome to say names or to use the chat feature to introduce yourself once again and to state the land upon which, oh, Dave is here. State the land upon which we stand.
Ashe Melinda, I'm calling from unceded Susquehannock land in so-called Harrisburg, PA.
Hey everyone, I'm Amber, pronouns are she, her. I live in New Orleans, which is the land of Choctaw, and I'm currently in Detroit. It's Ojibwe, Ottawa, and I don't know how to say the last one, Potawatomi. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Ashe.
And I'm Melinda, calling in from Abenaki land. We see the first light, people of the dawn land. And Dave, good to see you.
Hey, I'm calling in from California here for work and calling on from Chumash line.
Awesome. And before I turn it over to Amber, just one more thing, and that is bringing into our circle tonight the ancestors, those who have gone before us, who are here with us in spirit, and who, please feel free to use the chat or to call out the names of individuals who you would like to enter into our circle tonight.
I want to honor my ancestors, Olivia Walker and Ruby Yarbrough, my grandmothers.
I'll say Gabriel Praso, Russell Maroon Shoatz, Gladys Shoatz.
Julia Manrique and Cecilia Manrique de Salazar.
Margaret Sandoval, General Tubman, Lil Bobby Hutton.
And we have Ann Goodson. Sorry to hear about your aunt, Nathan. Blessings to her. And yeah. Okay, Amber, I would love to turn it over to Amber. The Truth Telling Project's activist fellow, and we are thrilled all the work that you've been able to bring to us and the perspectives and your experiences around police and those in the mass incarceration system. So Amber, take it away.
Awesome. Yeah, so excited to introduce, and I'm guessing everybody on this call may know, we've been talking about you a lot, Russell, in our time together with Truth Telling Project. So where do I start? Number one, your amazing work in longtime campaign work in freeing your father. Your father was Black Panther, and you did amazing work in working to free him from prison and solitary confinement after 25 years, successfully liberated him from 50 years of incarceration. I guess that is what you are most known for, but not all of the things you've done since then have been working to distribute finances, helping with multiple organizations, founding media platform, institutions, schools and businesses. They're political strategist, contributing to electoral campaigns, mentor, lead organizer on multiple community-based campaigns. We actually should talk because my work is similar to all of that. Like, I'm sure you have a lot of knowledge and wisdom to offer. And I guess currently you still do most of those things noted after, yes. So if there's anything that you want to add to that list or anything that's pertinent or of note, welcome it. But I want to welcome you to talk just about your work, what you're doing currently, where people are able to connect with you and how we can support you. And then from there, we'll ask questions. And yeah, we'll open up the floor to everybody to ask questions.
And so should I begin now?
Yeah, you can begin. Sorry, I wasn't clear.
No, thank you. And thank you for that introduction. And I would like to first and foremost thank all of you for having me on the platform, opening up this space and this time to do this very critical work. I had posted the imagery and flyer for this event, and in that post, there were some things that I said I wanted to use the platform to try to address. And one of those things, which is really near and dear to my heart and something that I'm really in this moment in time, trying to get people to kind of get their minds wrapped around. And that is, for lack of better terms, the 2022 maroon lifestyle. And so when I say the 2022 maroon lifestyle, I would like to just, I guess, give a quick definition, synopsis of what a maroon is in general. And so maroons are runaway slaves at their core. And the maroons and the maroon history looks a lot of different ways. I think people recognize maroons all the way from 𝐑𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐞𝐥𝐥 𝐒𝐡𝐨𝐚𝐭𝐳. Those are, slaves who came and, for lack of better terms, took over a slave ship, came all the way to America and went to court and won their case in court to be free. And 𝐶𝐻 argued a masterful case to liberate himself and his comrades after taking over a ship, which meant killing some folks. And so that is just one aspect of maroon history. Then you have the Palenques, you have the quilombos, you have people from Jamaica, people from Florida, people from Brazil. So this is a huge culture. I would propose that folks watch the Brazilian movie if they haven't watched it already, 𝐑𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐞𝐥𝐥. And 𝐑𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐞𝐥𝐥 talks about Palmares and 𝐑𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐞𝐥𝐥 and Zumbi of Palmares. These are two freedom fighters extraordinaire. And that would lead me up to Nanny Granny, who is almost global, because you find Nanny Grannies globally in struggles in general. So these are archetypes also. These aren't just people from African cultures, even though in African cultures, we see them a lot more because of the slave trade. We see them a lot more because of racism. We see them a lot more because of the white supremacy that, for lack of better terms, landed them in these positions. But these archetypes go all the way back to ancient Egypt and any level of resistance. So when I talk about Nanny Granny, I'm also talking about Harriet Tubman. I'm also talking about any of these women freedom fighters who are the real core of the Maroon history. A lot of people don't know them. And the last person that I would like people to look into in talking about 2020 Maroon history is Bartholomew Roberts, or Black Bart. And Black Bart is pretty much, you know, in reference to revolt slave history and before slaves getting off the boat, or what I like to call water maroons or pirates. And so a lot of people see, you know, Johnny Depp and they love the Pirates of the Caribbean, but very few people make the connection that Johnny Depp has dreads in the Pirates of the Caribbean. And Johnny Depp is actually playing Black Bart, who is Bartholomew Roberts, who is an interesting character in the context that he wasn't a slave, but he was a navigator, and he was on European slips that took slaves. And at some point, one of those ships had a mutiny and they made him the captain. And then he would come across other slave ships and they would take those ships and they would take the gold and they would take the rum and they would take the booty, which was really African bodies. And then they would, for lack of better terms, politically educate those African bodies, and they would target more ships. And the history of Black Bart is one that we need to get people to look at a lot closer and do more in-depth research on, because Black Bart is responsible for a lot of culture that ends up in the Wild Wild West, named after the Wild Wild West, but actually coming from Black Bart. The 10-point program is one of the first 10-point programs that you see in history, comes from Black Bart. Dueling off comes from Black Bart, take 10 steps and turn around and shoot, which people think is from the Wild West, but that comes from Black Bart. And a gang of other things that I could run down, but the research is worthy and I think necessary for where we are today. And the white supremacy that exists and the Black bodies that are murdered every year lead us to a place of connection to our past president and the events that happened at the Capitol, which lead a lot of our people to feel in danger. We've already been in danger from the police brutality, but now this new level of white supremacy that is in the global office and that has drummed up a whole nation of folks to be in a certain mindset that begs the question of what mindset are we in? And so the mindset that I am in and the mindset that I encourage you all to be in is a mindset of a Maroon, which is one who could, at any given point, like Zumbi, be in the normal social society, living in a church with a pastor, you know, reciting scripture, and similar to any of us in our situation today, but also having the knowledge and understanding and ability to leave that immediately and be able to not just live off the land, but be able to be self-sufficient, to be able to have a certain level of self-sufficiency, the ability to be autonomous. And that is what I would like to say about modern day Maroon culture, is that we need autonomy. We need the ability to be able to take care of ourselves, take care of our communities, take care of our children, take care of our elders. And that was something that was done in those days. It was intergenerational. And a lot of the culture leads directly into the next topic. These topics kind of intersect, and the next topic is mutual aid. And through the rebellions and uprising of George Floyd, through COVID, we have seen a reemergence of mutual aid. And mutual aid has always been a part of the African community, and it looks a lot different than it may have looked throughout COVID. But we saw throughout COVID in different communities nationally, people come out and be of service and aid to each other. And that is crucial right now. That will be crucial moving into the future with all of the different issues that we have on the table, from housing to food shortages, to medical shortages, all the way to incarceration. So at the end of the day, it is super important. And I think one of the most important things we could talk about today is solidarity. And so solidarity is an offshoot or an overlap or a sister to mutual aid. And so mutual aid and solidarity go hand in hand. I think mutual aid, as an addition to solidarity, will bring resources, skill sets, food, things like that, that just solidarity alone, me just saying we're comrades, you know, I support you, you support me, you know, type of ideology is great, but it's not going to be enough moving forward. We're going to have to have mutual aid in very specific ways. And I think the culture of mutual aid and giving in our communities needs to be reinvigorated as it was during the rebellions. I will move from that directly into a restorative economy. And so when I talk about restorative economies, one of the most important conversations for me today, and with all of my white accomplices, I request of them that if they have extra resources, if they have extra skill sets that can be monetized specifically, one of the biggest requests from me is that if you have, or if you are a heir to anything, if you are going to have parents that are going to die and you're not an heir, but they're going to leave you some land, a house, some materials, some vehicles, whatever it may be, that you seriously consider making those things available to people who are not in that position to be an heir, people of color who are looking for land, people of color who don't have resources and need specific materials, that they be conscious and try to make sure that they don't follow in the same old model of receiving those gifts. Another way that I am looking at and dealing with restorative economy is specifically through land. So here in Vermont, but also in Philadelphia, Massachusetts, Boston, well, Boston is Mass. I'm working on a space in New Jersey. I have another space donated in North Carolina, but I'm asking people to donate land, donate houses, donate basements, donate bedrooms to our care spaces. So in Philadelphia, we have a revolutionary care space. Here in Vermont, we have a revolutionary care space. I'm developing a cannabis care space in New York. And all of these care spaces, for lack of better terms, will be at least in the small way, they will be short-term housing. In the larger way, they will be long-term housing for people of color and people looking to move forward in this world with the type of ideology that creates a new world. And our care spaces look to create a new world, and part of that creation is the healing piece. So our communities are definitely traumatized. Our communities are definitely in need of healing. Our communities are definitely in need of housing. Our communities are definitely in need of spaces that are outside of the box in the context of housing and healing. So these spaces have a lot of different looks. Some of them will be spaces that you will make donations to. Some of them will be spaces that will be totally free across the board. Some of the spaces will be spaces that will be 50-50. And we look to ultimately create spaces that are 110% free for people to live in long-term and to have equity in those spaces. And that is a huge part of work that I'm looking at and I'm concerned about, and trying to get people more interested in care spaces. And when I say care spaces, you know, it could have been anything. It could have been a freedom space. It could have been a liberation space. It could have been a love space. And I thought of all of those, and partners and folks, you know, thought about all different types of ways to bring these spaces to life, to manifest these spaces. But I can't say enough that care is a key word that we need to embody more of, because it's different from love. And a lot of times we hear people say, I don't care. I don't care. And when somebody says that, it has a resonance. You know, you talk to someone like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. Has that resonance that makes you know that you can guarantee it's no love there. You can guarantee it's almost no empathy there. You can guarantee that if a person says they don't care, that 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be able to get their ear, their attention, their ability to be able to be available for you. And so we're trying to get our people specifically to recognize the importance of the word care. Because when you do say, I care, then it's a whole different level of responsibility. And that level of responsibility is what we really need in our communities, especially in the healing aspect. When you care for someone, the healing is almost a guarantee. When people are cared for at a high level, then it's hard for trauma to exist in the same space as care. So when we're caring for ourselves, which is first and foremost, because I can't care for you, I can't take good care of you. I can't model care well if I'm not taking care of myself. If you come to the care space and I'm overweight and I'm abusing myself and I'm excessive and I'm extractive and I'm abusing alcohol or I'm abusing drugs or I'm abusing myself in general, then you're gonna be like, oh, well, what kind of care space is this? Like, am I gonna, you know, how good am I gonna be treated? How well can you take care of me if you're falling down? If you're falling down and you still want to care for me, that's good. But I'm gonna be questioning or looking at what level of care is it gonna be? So self-care, you know, taking care of yourself well is part of that new maroon lifestyle. We have to take care of ourselves a lot better because it takes nothing for folks to wipe you off the planet. It takes little or nothing these days, just in the food that we ingest, the air we breathe, the water we drink. You have to actually look at things today as if almost, and COVID taught us this too, that, you know, you're going to be 9 times out of 10 compromised just in general. Like we live compromised lives. And people say, well, you know, if I was a slave, I wouldn't have went for this. I wouldn't have ate that. Or I would have ran away, or I would have whatever. But, you know, I like to look at things as we're not too far removed from that. You know, we live a certain level of slavery today. We're just slave to different things. And a lot of times in our prison system, it's a physical slavery. But out here in the microcosm prison, the bigger prison, they're in the small prison, we're in the huge prison. And in this huge prison, there are so many different ways in which you are compromised. And one of the first ways is through what you're intaking, what you're ingesting. And so I beg of folks to try to do better around what we ingest, how we ingest, how much we ingest. And I won't be hypocritical because I'm super debaucherous 3/4 of the year. And when, because I'm a chef, so I'm a retired chef, I'm not a chef anymore. But I've always been a foodie, so I love food. I love great food. I like to make great food. I like to make great food matched with great alcohol and spirits. I like to make great food match with great alcohol, spirits, and great people. But if you do that enough, you will not be in a good care of yourself. You won't be taking good care of yourself. And this is a Western style ideology that I like to say to people. I'm in a bunch of meetings, I'm in a bunch of care spaces, I'm in a bunch of retreats where there's always, you know, a circle. And then at that circle, you know, we're talking about what our needs are. And a lot of times I hear what the needs are and I kind of chuckle inside because I know that we all have been westernized in a certain type of way, and that affects what our needs are. But also we've been westernized in the type of way that we haven't pushed or challenged ourselves to actually know what our needs are. And until 3 Black Augusts ago, happy Black August, everyone. Until 3 Black Augusts ago, I started a fast, and it was like, okay, I'm gonna do the master cleanse for my Black August. And to make a long story short, I did that. I was like, oh, I could do this. You know, I could do this more than whatever days they prescribed for it. And I did a bunch of meditations. And in those meditations were a bunch of downloads from the ancestors saying things like, stop doubting yourself. Like, stop doubting anything that you know is righteous and correct. If you know it's righteous and correct, have no doubts about it. Run at it full steam ahead. Don't question, don't, you know, stop all of the doubting, period. Another part of those downloads were that you're too extractive. You're just taking everything. You're eating the most food, you're smoking the most weed, you're drinking the most alcohol, you're doing the most. Is it necessary? Is it really necessary? And I had to honestly say to myself, no, it wasn't. And so in these fasts, I went from just doing it from 10 days to doing all of August. So I went 31 days with no solid food, just liquid. And so the next year, I said, let me push myself a little further. And I watched a documentary called In the Beginning, There Was Light. And I learned that there are whole cultures of people who actually don't eat any food at all. So I said, well, how is that? How is that even possible? Well, it's possible because you've been westernized. You've only been westernized. You've been lobbied. Not only you've been lobbied, not only been lied to, not only you've been miseducated, not only you've been led away from yourself. So we know the food pyramid. You know, I thought I needed milk, meat, eggs, dairy, cheese, grain in order to survive. Until I did my fast for 3 months, until I fasted for 3 months with nothing, I didn't know what I was capable of. Now I know that I'm capable of not eating for a third of the year, a quarter of the year, I'm sorry. You know, and so when I say that to people, like, I don't eat for a quarter of a year, they look at me. I say, well, some people don't eat at all. You know, this guy in this documentary, In the Beginning There Was Light, he ain't ate since he was 7, and he like 70 now. So I'm like, what does that look like? You know, and how does that working? Yes, I know about prana. I know that there are people in India. I know that there are people, monks in Asia. I know that there are people in different spiritual realms that don't do that. I know martial artists and people like that don't do, but I didn't know that there were just whole subsets of 30,000 people here, 20,000 people there, 10,500 here that just don't eat. And so you say that here in this land, and people are like, oh, bro, you tripping. Yeah, I'm gonna get that debauchery. I'm gonna get all that alcohol. I'm gonna get all that weed. I'm gonna get all that food. I'm getting that. I don't care what you're getting. You know, you could not get that, but I'm gonna get that. You know, and so it is super important to me that we recognize and push ourselves to see individually what our needs is. And this overlaps into my next, which is because of that lack of knowledge of self, because we don't really know, because we've never pushed, because we've taken someone else's advice. This works for me 3 months. It might not work for you. I'm not proposing that it works for you. I'm not proposing that you try anything that I've tried. I'm proposing that you try you. I'm proposing that you know you better than anything else on this planet, and that will give you more access to things. But knowing about reading, math, arithmetic, school, and grad studies, and your doctorate, that's cool. But do you have a doctorate on you? Do you have a master's in you? And when you do, that will change everything. That will change everything. When you get the master's in yourself, then that changes the whole dynamic. So when we are changing these dynamics, when we are pushing ourselves, when we are asking ourselves the question, the tough questions of what am I really capable of? What do I really need? It begs the question for me of if we are really getting to these spaces, then we have a chance to, for lack of better terms, leap some hurdles. We have a chance to get beyond some of the schisms that exist. And there are a lot of schisms. And in this Western world that we live in, there's a ton of fear mongering, okay? And it always existed, but when they got to this space, and they're just constantly trying different fear mongering tactics with you, okay? But when they got to the space of the medical fear mongering tactic, not just the hurt alert or whatever, like I've fallen and I can't get up. Let me press the button, call a doctor or whatever. No, but when I come into your home and I tell you that, we have COVID, the whole world, and you need to quarantine. And in that quarantine, you need to do this. And after that, you need to do this. And after that, you need to take this shot. And after that, you need to put this in your nose. And after that, you need to be this distance. And after that, you need to meet with people in these type of ways. All fine and dandy. We should do all of those things. Also, you need to check your immune system. Also, you need to know about herd immunity. Also, you need to know about the community of people who you are around, how they're taking care of themselves. You need to know that you're going to possibly be compromised. You need to know that if you're African, you're already compromised. So what have we learned from that? And in my space, what I've learned is that I have to take care of myself. I have to make sure that my immune system is strong. Is that going to be the end all be all? No, but that's going to be the first line of defense. And especially as an African, that's going to be the first line of defense. I have to be healthy and strong, like all of the time, because it's not over. Because they told you it wasn't going to be over. They said it's round number 2. It's COVID morphing into different COVIDs. Forget COVID. We on to the pox now. We're on to monkeypox now. And so what comes after monkeypox? Something else is coming after monkeypox. But I said to folks when COVID first dropped, I said, where are you beyond your great immune system? You're taking care of yourself. You're doing elderberry now. Everybody got the herbs. We're doing everything to keep ourselves healthy. Okay, we're doing those things, but also, have you contemplated your mortality? And if you have not contemplated your mortality, then you probably need to do that. And you probably need to do that like yesterday. And I don't
Russell,
think
I'm gonna stop you. We're gonna I want you to finish your last thought, but we're gonna open up the floor for questions. We got about 12 minutes left.
beautiful. So mortality, confront your mortality so that you can be stronger, so that you're not subject to fear monger. Thank you.
Thank you. We've been frantically writing questions and thoughts in the chat as you've been talking. We all very much enjoyed it, and are learning a whole lot. And we'd love for you to continue talking. But we do want to be mindful of time. And I guess we could read out some of the questions in the chat. I think all of us have asked some questions. And yes, thank you so much for sharing with us. Does anybody want to share their question out loud that they put in the chat? I had about 3.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start. Go back and try to find my message, because I think the one thing I had was about mutual aid. I've been a part of a lot of mutual aid stuff. I've done food not bonds before. That was like my first purview into radical politics. And before I say any of that, I just want to say thank you. Like, the fact that my mind already went on like 3 different questions is just testament to how much knowledge you dropped on us. Like, I want to really thank you for like the time and like that you've given to us today. Like, I really feel like very just like my mind is like been really opened by this conversation. So I want to say thank you first off the rip. But my question really is like with regards to like mutual aid. When I have conversations with people, sometimes the things that I hear them say are some things to the effect of like, well, mutual aid is just like radical charity. It doesn't have transformative power. It's just doing the state's job for it. And I'm curious if you have any like a rebuttal to that, or like a different conception of how you understand mutual aid to be. Like how do you respond to that idea?
Yeah, I've heard those rebuttals, and I respond to it with Chiapas. I respond to it with I'd say go to Amish country and talk that nonsense. Go to any of the Hutterite communities. Go to Mondragon.
And I had a follow-up question about mutual aid. I've been told like it's like passing the same $20 around, and it's not actually building any kind of wealth. And how does it intersect with reparations work, you think?
Yeah, it's crucial, specifically in the context of, it can't be passing $20 around or what have you. In the context of, I work with a number of different organizations, and those organizations a lot of times have scooped me out of the mud, and brought me back, not just physically, not just spiritually, not just, psychologically, but also economically. So it's also about those relationships with where the mutual aid is coming from. A lot of times, that's why people get the $20, it's who you're aiding with and what type of aid are you giving them as opposed to receiving.
I'll let somebody else go. I had a lot of questions. Go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah, so first, Russell, thank you so much. Really enjoyed the share. So I'll say for a moment, when you talk about the degrees, I felt a little something there, and because I'm an educator, I'm a professor at Morehouse, and I tend to think that in our community we do sort of realize, like in terms of Westernization and how we've all been Westernized, education. But I think, there's also a strong belief that I have that education plays a really important role. And so when you talk about ingesting food, one of the questions I had is like, does that include education? And I'm an educator, I'm a professor at Morehouse. And so every semester I have about 150 young men in front of me, young men, the most of them who identify as Black men. And so I feel that it's both a privilege, but also a really important position that I take care for. But I also find myself, in terms of your note, it's like we need to know yourself. You know, I'm constantly learning myself and growing and developing. And so I wanted you to talk a little bit more about how education, and in particular higher education, sort of plays into your thinking around just our self-knowledge. I see that from Melinda in the chat, and just these other factors around education as it relates to your work, and what we as higher educators can do better, or individually, as we get to know ourselves.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. And I'm a big fan of education in general. I come from an education family. You know, all of my aunts, my sister, my uncles, they're all teachers, you know, in some way, shape, or form. And I'm a teacher too. But I am super critical of institutionalized education, specifically in the context that there's a formation of it. You know, these schools, you know where they come from, you know who finances them, you know who built them, even the Black schools. Okay, so a lot of times I've seen it, I've been a part of it, that a lot of times we're stifled as educators in how we can deliver or what we can even deliver. I've had to be creative in delivering messages that I knew the people who were hiring me didn't want me to deliver that message. So I had to find creative ways to get the message to my students. And so outside of that, I don't have any critique of higher education, but I do have the request or the desire to have, especially Black males, you know, go deeper, be more creative, recognize that that we're in a box, obviously. And a lot of times that gets us fired, you know, and I'm in the time where I'm thinking that just like the lawyers, you know, I think of automatics all of the time. Like if you're a lawyer and somehow you got past George Floyd and they didn't disbar you, you're not a good lawyer. Simple. If somehow you could stay in an institution for a long, long time and they don't fire you, then maybe you ain't coming hard enough. Because when you bring the real material and you actually push it, then 9 times out of 10, they're going to try to get rid of you. And we've seen this. And that's not just, that's in most of the fields. You could be a police officer. You bring the right material as a police officer, you know, the Serpicos or whoever you want to name, you know, they're either going to kill you as a police officer, you know, they're going to get you off the force. They're going to put you at a desk. They're going to make you do something that you're not there to save lives. You really want to protect the community. You really protecting the community. That's not what they there for. That's not what we there for. So that part, but yes, brother, keep up the great work. Thank you.
Melinda, you want to ask any questions?
No, no, I think that I'm going to pass to others who have burning questions, but I do want to say that I spent some time in maroon villages in the Indian Ocean, outside of Thailand and Cambodia, and that's an experience. And I'm super grateful for that. So I love that you are identifying both the national as well as the international maroon community. We've got a lot of folks who have created incredible lives for themselves on very limited resources. So I'll defer to other more burning questions. And thank you so much, Russell.
Yes.
I
Thank you.
had a question. I had a question about specifically. I mean, so I had 2 different questions. I guess they kind of intersect. The you know, difference between, I haven't done a lot of research on Moors, but like Moors versus like Maroons, and then also like independent nations. Or Maroons considered independent nations, like in terms of operation in the U.S. and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. I'm just seeing in the chat. My apologies. So I want to address that. But yeah, the Moors and Maroons are like apples and oranges. The Moors come from an Islamic background and end up doing a bunch of world travel and ending up in Europe and doing a bunch of educational work there and bringing people to a civil state out of the dark ages, basically. And the Maroon communities are not, as for lack of better terms, they don't have their own resources. They're slaves. That's the major difference is that these people have freedom, they have resources, they have countries and kingdoms. You know, the Moors have, they are very rich in culture in general. So that's one major difference. But also on the international question, yes, I support 110% in the country, us having a nation. I have supported that work in indigenous communities. I've supported that work with NALPO and MXG and folks who support the 5 Black states in the South. So I've supported that work. So yes, I think that is crucial work that needs to be done. And yes, it is important. I support it. Anyone else? I saw someone ask about by donate, does this ultimately mean ownership? And so ultimately, no. By donate, it means what people can actually give, but there is a conversation that I usually have with folks about what they can give in reference to needs. Also, you know, like the earlier conversation, your family's had this land for XYZ amount of years. You've had these houses for XYZ years. You're here, you're passing it to you, blah, 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 blah. How much do you really need? You know, when I'm talking to European folks, I'm like, how much do you really need? You know, and if you could share, do you have a room somewhere in your house? Can you share that? Okay. People need a room. Yeah. I mean, we're in such a situation housing wise in this country. People need a room. So I'll facilitate that. I'll vet the people. They're my comrades. I'll get them to leave if it's a problem. But do you have a room for this comrade to stay? Those conversations. All the way down to, you got acres, you got houses, you got lands on the block. Let's have that conversation. What would it take? Will you put someone on your deed? Would you do that? All of those conversations. It's flexible. There's no pressure. There's no stress. But if you're open to having these conversations, we can find something for you to do with all of your resource material, houses, land, whatever it may be. A lot of people where I'm at in Vermont, they got hundreds of acres. So it's just a regular question. And it's no stress. Always, never no stress.
Yeah, kind of related. Oh,
Go ahead, Nathan.
very briefly, I know it's closing time, but you know, part of this higher education piece, you know, faculty members and professors, they write a grant and they take $20,000 home from that grant. And I feel like that's a big problem. And I feel like part of it, that the mutual aid is challenging us to sort of like get these grant funds. So I was happy to hear from Melinda that like there's the Mellon Foundation and stuff, and share them with the community. I just wanted to make that note because I'm really interested in figuring out that space, because I think it allows for those of us that are sort of stuck in these institutions to be a little bit more radical with this money that people are willing to give to us because of the degree or whatever it may be. But just wanted to share that.
No, thank you. Thank you. And I'll just tap on that real quick and say that, yes, please do that. I'm also asking that even in this process, and it's not an easy thing because I have a business that is a non-for-profit, and I have a gang of businesses that are fiscally sponsored. And so I understand how things work in order for us to get money to the community. But I'm trying for us to build new models, live outside of those boxes, and not require our people to have to jump through any hoops to receive any finances at all, any hoops at all. So I'm at the space where, through Building Fearless Futures, one of the companies that we run out of Vermont, which is an anti-racist mitigation company, when people come to us and need resources, we just give the resources. We have a petty cash fund set aside with I won't give the number, but it's a decent amount of money for us to be able to say, yes, you can have that. Because just tell us what your vision is. The requirement, the deliverable is, tell us what your vision is. Bye-bye. Love you guys.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we wanted to continue the conversation and have lots more thoughts, but I do want to honor this time. And thank you so much for joining, and for everyone. And thank you, Russell, for sharing your wealth of knowledge and your years of experience in this work. And we will put this video out for folks that weren't able to join, and we'll also continue to share about the work you're doing, and you know how we can continue to support you even after this month. So yeah, does anybody have anything else they want to say? Dave, you have anything you want to say to close? If not, then we can close on out.